choice is to, in effect, vote for a sitting council member.
So I don't need to bring it
Your
up.
only
Okay. This is my
choice
first time
to
doing
vote
this.
against recall
What do I need to
that
do?
council. Each seat
We asked him not
is
to.
for the duration of the existing council member's term.
We asked him not
So in this particular case, Mr. Jones' seat expires in November of 2012. If the
That's
recall
why
of
we have to
Mr.
take this
Jones
out.
is successful, then the person who would take his seat is deemed to be elected at the end of this election and would be sworn in at the next council meeting and would have to run for election in November 2012. Mr. Bankhead and Mr. McKinley's seats do not expire until November of 2014. And so they would either complete their term or the person elected to take their seat would complete their term in November of 2014. Now, we are going to do things a little bit differently tonight because there are somewhere around 15 people running in this election. And if we put 15 people up here, we get a few questions answered and we get pretty confused. So we're going to do things a little bit differently. You have before you the candidates running for Mr. Bankhead's seat. We will have approximately 45 minutes to hear from these candidates, their opening statements, their closing statements, and their responses to your written questions. We will then take a 5-minute recess, 5-minute recess. And then we will bring up the candidates for Mr. McKinley's seat. And we will do the same thing. We will take another 5-minute recess. And we will bring up the candidates for Mr. Jones' seat before we close. We have some indispensable members of the league here this evening to help us. We have timers. If they could please stand. Jerry Young and Carol Biddle. They have signs. They have signs that indicate the amount of time left for each speaker. We have question sorters over here. Kate Bruce, Wanda Schaefer, and Lisa Osterstrom. Their job is to sort through your questions for duplication and to weed out any personal attacks. That does not mean that a person's voting record is a personal attack, but it does mean that personal attacks are not allowed. Now, the one thing that we hear over and over, and I have been moderating League of Women Voters Candidates Nights for over 30 years, is that you didn't ask my question. I know, but there are a lot of you, and we have a little bit of time. So, there's a couple things I need to ask of you, and I've asked it of the candidates, and they've agreed. Our time is precious. The faster we move, and the better behaved we all are, the more questions we get asked. We're going to take time at the end of every segment and thank our candidates. I would ask you to join me in that at the end of the segment. Please hold your applause until the end of our 45-minute segments. To do otherwise wastes very valuable time. Our format is this. Each of our candidates will have 2 minutes for their opening statement. They have drawn lots for the order and said they will get those statements in. We will then take your questions. Every candidate has the opportunity to answer every question, but they need not do so. And then they will give their 1-minute closing statements in reverse order. Please turn off your cell phones and any electronic devices. We have ushers in the room. I do run a tight ship. There will be no verbal questions. There will be no verbal interaction from your side of the dais to this side of the dais. You'll listen to these people and your questions will come in writing. There'll be lots of ushers. Write them down. They'll get them up here as quickly as they can and we'll get through this in as we can. Let's begin. Our first opening statement is from Mr. Alvarez. Mr. Alvarez. They are they're all on all the time, by the way.
Oh, that's good.
So that means there's no cheating up here. Good evening to all. Thank you for taking your time to come out this evening and make a meeting with us. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for putting this on for us. My name is Rick Alvarez. 50 years ago, we came to this country. I was born in Havana, Cuba. And in '62, we landed in this country in Miami, running away from communism. We came here looking for a better life. We found it in the fact that we found that if we worked hard, America would reward us. And that work ethic continues to dominate my life. I currently serve the city of Fullerton on the Planning Commission and also on the Catholic Commission. My friends who know me and people that I work with found that during this recall election, they felt that it would be good for me to step up and go to the next level of serving the citizens of Fullerton at the city council level. So we welcome your questions, and I look forward to answering all of them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Alvarez. I do need to make one note. We have a citizen who has asked to videotape tonight's event. That is not our preference, but we cannot make that not happen. So I do need to make all of the candidates and everyone in the audience aware that that is happening. The league rules do state that anyone who videotapes must show that videotape in an unedited format, and so I would certainly hope that that never happens in any other way. Our next speaker for their opening statement is Mr. Seymour.
Good afternoon. I'm Greg Seaborn. I'm a fourth-generation Fullertonian. I was born and raised here. Spent the better part of 40 years going to school here, going to church here, and now raising my family here. Since I was a child, I've been involved with the city in various ways, whether it be in youth athletics, whether it be through the schools, and through different school programs like the JROTC program. I've been involved and been active. As an adult, I've been a Little League coach. I've been a adult leader for Boy Scouts, unit commissioner for scouting. I'm a volunteer for Girl Scouts. Having 3 children, you get involved in all of their activities. So wherever they're involved with, I'm involved with, even badly today. On the civic side, I'm involved with the Citizens Infrastructure Review Commission, which I'm the chairman of. I'm also on the Water Rate Study Ad Hoc Committee. I've served on another ad hoc committee for the Downtown Corridor Specific Plan, where we determine which consultant might be best suited to put together a plan for our downtown to kind of change it up and hopefully improve it. I've also been an activist. You've probably seen me at least a few times at the dais complaining about something and trying to offer up a solution. It's my opinion that if you're going to complain, hopefully you also have a solution. I like to think I have a lot of solutions. Hopefully you'll hear about some of them tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seymour. Our third speaker this evening for his opening statement is Mr. Bankhead.
Thank you. My name is Don Bankhead, and really I want to start this off and just thank my wife Carol. We were recently married 28 years in April, and quite frankly, she stood by me a lot and helped me a lot. I just want to thank her publicly. I also want to thank the League of Women Voters, and appreciate having this going tonight. As I said, I am Don Bankhead. I came to Fullerton in 1957, and I basically have served the people of Fullerton since I arrived in the city. I went to work for the Fullerton Police Department. I served there over 31 years. During that period of time, I continued my college work and with an AA degree in police science. I have a master's degree in public administration from Cal State Florida. I have served on just about every board that this county has to offer. At the present time, I serve on the Orange County Water District as your representative. I sit on the OCTA Board of Directors as your representative, and I sit on the Solid Waste Commission for the county, which deals with our landfills and everything to make sure that we get the best and price that we can possibly get from having her trash and garbage picked up. So I'm here tonight to convince you that I want to stay where I'm at. I enjoy and I like serving the public of Fullerton. When I decided to leave Texas and make Fullerton my home, this is where I've been. And everything I do and every type of thing that I do what I feel is in the behalf of all of Fullerton, not just Republicans, not just Democrats, all of Fullerton. So with that, again, I appreciate you here tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bankhead. Ms. Williams.
Good evening. My name is Paula Williams. I'm a mom, a working mom with 3 children. I have 2 older children, adult children that are attending 4-year universities, and I have a 12-year-old. I am a public employee. I am employed with the County of Orange Department of Social Services. I am a union member, an active union member. I'm serving on the executive board. I've lobbied California, our Congress against privatization, against, I apologize. I lobbied as an executive board member of AFSCME against privatization. I have participated in contract negotiations with the County of Orange. I bring to the Fullerton Council seat a knowledge base of federal rules, regulations, and in addition to that, I'm running for the council seat to assure accountability and responsibility in support of you, our constituents, and thank you, and vote for me, Paula Williams, for Fullerton Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ransom.
Thank you. I'm going to invite you all to pick up my biography on the back table, please. Why is there a recall, and why am I running this recall? There have been a number of wake-up calls recently. The brutal beating death of Kelly Thomas was a wake-up call to unchecked excessive force within our police department. The lack of any public statements from the chief of police, mayor, or city manager, coupled with the misinformation given by the public information officer, was either a poorly calculated tactic or the result of no one taking charge. Either way, it was evidence of poor leadership. Not an isolated incident. There have been other cases of abuse. Currently, the city's being sued for same officer in 2 instances of excessive force and false arrest. An officer Rincon was recently let go by the police department, but only after 7 complaints and Superior Court judge reprimanding the city and County DA for doing nothing. Allowing these men to continue to attack women while he was arresting them. The water rate increase that was proposed last month.
Excuse me, but we cannot hear you back here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So if you would just project your voice a little more forcefully.
And not so fast.
We only have 2 minutes. The water rate increase that was proposed on March 2011 opened a can of worms when the residents were told that their water delivery system had been left unrepaired for so long they were being asked to shoulder a water rate increase of 6% per year compounded over 5 years, which results in a 34% increase. People were asked how the 10% franchise fee was being used, and they found out there was an illegal water tax. The popular referendum to stop the Chevron development in West Coyote Hills was a result of the current majority on the council creating a new municipal term called a redo when they undid the previous council's denial of the project. People garnered enough signatures in this town to qualify a referendum for the November ballot to undo their redo. The people of Fullerton know it's time for change. The changes I will work for are civilian oversight of citizen complaints, as well as oversight of police policies and procedures, clear accounting practices that allow the average person to know how their money is being spent, respect for the desire of people to shape the future of their own town. Thank you.
Thank you. That ends our opening statements. I guess I must caution each of you to pull the microphone as close to you as possible. We are starting to add seats in the back, and evidently they are having trouble hearing. Can you hear me?
Not as clearly as we might like.
Pardon me?
We cannot hear you as clearly as we might like.
Okay, let's
Thank
go
you.
up a little louder so we get feedback if we go up louder. Okay, I'll just talk a little louder. Still a little feedback. Our first question will be for Mr. Alvarez. What is your plan for balancing the budget?
That's an easy one. I own a business in town here. I've owned a Tiffany here in Fullerton for 12 years. Before that, I've run some very large organizations. In being in business, you have to balance your budget. You have to live within your means, and that's something that we live with as business owners every day. One of the things I plan to bring to the table, to the city of Fullerton, is my experience in balancing our budgets throughout most of my career in corporate life and in the personal business I'm in. One of the questions that was asked of me the other night regarding what would be my first thing that I would do once I'm elected. And I said to the gentleman who answered the question was, I would meet everybody that works for the city of Fullerton. One of the things that I think is very critical in making decisions going forward is that we must know the personalities of the people that work for us, know what makes them tick, what motivates them, and how they spend our dollars. Because ultimately, it is our money that they're spending. Thank you so much.
Mr. Seaborn?
Thank you. You know, if you go to the grocery store and you have $100 in your pocket, that's all you're going to be able to spend is $100. The city needs to operate the same manner. If that's all the money you have, that's all the money you can spend. Set your priorities and go for what you absolutely need, not what you'd like. You have to start prioritizing. It's just really that simple.
Thank you. Mr. Bankhead?
Yes, the balanced budget in this economy, it's difficult. But the balance in what you do is you make arrangements one way or the other. You have to lay people off or fire people. You change the rules and regulations for retirement benefits. You do all the things that's necessary. You also go out and go to the public. You give out or contract out for instance, tree trimming. We've been contracting our service for tree trimming now for almost 20 years. And of course, every so often, we review that to determine whether or not the contract we have will do it cheaper than our employees could do it. And we find for all these years that people we contract with trims our trees and takes care of those things much more efficient and cheaper than we could have our own employees. We contract out in the private sector from several of our different programs, our janitorial service and so forth and things like that. But that's the way you balance the budget.
Thank you. Ms. Williams?
As a county employee, I'm employed within the social services agency. Understanding that we're facing the economic times that we have, there are other revenue streams and sources. The program that I'm employed in is the MSI program. You as county constituents, you pay, your taxes go to pay and fund the MSI program because that's a program that is chartered under the under our county charter. And one revenue stream was grants. It's a grant right now that funds the program, and that's another revenue stream that could be added to what we have for the Fullerton budget. And we may be losing the community block grant, but there's other revenue streams other than what we have here before us, and that would prevent the shortfalls that Fullerton faces.
Thank you. Ms. Rance?
Thank you. My plan for balancing the budget is first of all to analyze the current budget so that I understand where the money currently is. And then I would recommend across the board reductions with the exception of prioritizing the infrastructure for possible increases. We have a need to repair our water delivery system and our streets. Unfortunately, we would need to, I respect Paula and being a public worker, absolutely, they are truly public servants, but we need to renegotiate for employers to pay a greater portion of benefits, employees to pay a greater portion of the benefits. And we also need to renegotiate our towing and trash contracts to bring in more revenue. Thank you.
Thank you. Our second question is for Mr. Seaborn. Mr. Seaborn, in view of all the publicity, both local and national, about the Kelly Thomas incident, what would you do to renovate Fullerton's reputation and image?
Well, that's a big question for 30 seconds, for even a minute. You know, you got to start somewhere, and it starts with having good leadership, both at City Hall and within the police department. And there's a lot of different ways you can handle it. And one of the things that's been proposed is basically dismantling the Fullerton Police Department, bringing in the Orange County Sheriff's Department. And some have said, oh, that'll save us a ton of money, and indeed it might, but it may have other ramifications as well that you know, might be jumping out of the frying pan into the fire. So, you know, it's going to take a lot of hard work. It's going to take a lot of oversight. It's going to be you have to hold people accountable, and that has started happening both at the court level as well as at the local level, and simply through this recall effort.
Thank you. Mr. Bankhead.
I will say this, that the city of Fullerton has had an outstanding police department for many, many years. Wayne H. Warnoff formed and made the rules and regulations that this department has operated under for all of these years. We're known throughout the state, this incident is extremely a terrible incident to occur. But all of our police officers are all well-trained. They're all post-police officer standard and training. They're all certified by that organization. It is unfortunate that sometimes someone, for whatever reason, goes beyond those training or that training. So with that, Fullerton Police Department will come back. It's got a problem right at this moment, but the officers that we still have here are outstanding officers, and the morale will show, and the department itself will come back.
Ms. Williams.
I don't agree with dismantling the police department. They're public employees, just as anyone that is working for the city of Fullerton, and they protect our city. That incident revealed what needed to be fixed. There was a disconnect to humanity and the humanity and the people involved in that incident.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Ms. Williams, that's the wrong sign. You may start over if you wish. You have a full one.
Yes, I would. No? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, it's our fault. Please just take a breath and collect your thoughts.
In continuing, I think there needs to be a realignment. The realignment of the department, and it needs to be presented to the city of Fullerton and to the constituents, business, including the people that are doing business in the city of Fullerton. And what happens is when you do that, it gives us greater, it gives the constituents greater ownership of their city and a participation in the process. But I don't agree with the dismantling of the police department.
Thank you. And again, we apologize. Ms. Rance.
One of the best ways to help guide the police through the reforms is through citizens' oversight. And our current acting chief of police, Captain Hughes, soon will be recommending citizens' oversight of police policies and procedures. I would like to see that expanded to also include citizens' oversight of complaints of the police. I too do not agree with dismantling our police department, mainly because the proposed replacement would be the Orange County Sheriff. They don't have a better record of, or they have even a worse record of abuse. And to be able to have the proper oversight, we need to have our own police force in-house. Rather than throwing the baby out with the bathwater, let's give a new police chief a try. Let's clean up the police department, get some oversight in place, and restore the reputation of our police department.
Thank you. Mr. Alvarez.
My feeling is that being under the microscope for such a tragic incident is the issue for us. But that gives us an opportunity as the city of Fullerton to show the rest of the world how we will handle this problem, how we will take care of our citizens, and how we will go forward with a concise, clear way for us as a city to handle any major incident that happens in this city. Thank you.
Thank you. Our third question this evening will be from Mr. Bankhead. We have two related questions. They essentially go together to ask the same thing. One says, how would you bring new business to Fullerton? The other says, most of us agree that something must be done to make downtown safe for Fullerton citizens after 10 p.m. Once that is solved, how would you bring new business to downtown Fullerton?
I get twice as much time to answer that. Well, we're constantly contacting, we go out and we research and find out where the open buildings are, how big they are, and things of this nature. And we go out and start looking for quality people to come to Fullerton. Fullerton is no more unsafe today than it was 20 years ago. Fullerton is a safe city and will continue to be safe. You have outstanding police officers here, and they'll continue to serve all of our public all the time. So, while we're in a situation that is extremely unfortunate, but you know, if you stop and think yourselves, there's probably been at least 4 or 5 shootings and killings in this area in other cities
You can finish your statement.
that have not even, it's a small little thing in the paper about them, and they're terrible. They're horrible situations. Anytime anyone dies is terrible, and you have to deal with it, take care of it, and try to make sure that the similar type thing will not happen again.
Thank you. Ms. Rance.
I believe that cleaning up the downtown will help even not only bring in more businesses downtown, but help keep the businesses we currently have on a regular basis. They would see graffiti etchings and spray paint on their windows. But our treasured historic downtown gets trashed on a regular basis by out-of-town guests. When Captain Crum made a presentation before the Planning Commission recently, he presented a pie chart that showed the majority of the pie being the arrests were from out of town. So the problem was created in 2002 when the Restaurant Overlay District was created. In 2008, the Planning Commission and Council implemented conditional use permits. Unfortunately, those have not been enforced, and so I think we could help to clean up our downtown by enforcing those CUPs and monitoring any new alcohol licenses that are being issued to new bars downtown.
Thank you. Mr. Alvarez.
Cleaning up the downtown, we have to get the business owners there to buy into our scenarios of how we control people and their drinking. The majority of the situations happen because people drink before they go into these bars. They drink out of their trunks of their cars, they park in our neighborhoods, they trash our neighborhoods by that way. But by the time they get to these restaurants, they're pretty buzzed already, okay? They don't want to spend $6, $7 for a bottle of beer or a glass of beer. So they'd rather bring their own. As far as bringing businesses to the town, we are, as California, we are 50th out of 50 states that most unfriendly for businesses. The state is driving businesses out of California. So for us to think that we can easily bring businesses to Fullerton, we're kidding ourselves. If we bring a business from, let's say, La Habra, La Mirada, or whatever, it's a zero-sum game. The other cities are trying to do the same thing to us. We must elect officials, Nancy?
Finish your statement.
We must elect officials to the city council that can interact with our state legislatures and our federal legislators that brings relief to the businesses in California. Thank you.
And I think as Jane pointed out, there's several rules and regulations and conditions for these businesses to operate, and they're not being enforced. And when they are enforced, it's much too late, and the damage is done to the neighborhoods. And you know, it seems like it takes you know, hundreds of violations before anything's done. There are a number of laws on the books, both state and municipal laws, that can be enforced, that hold the bartenders, the servers, the bar owners, the business owners, and even the landlords all accountable. When you start holding them accountable and you start enforcing those regulations, they'll get the message and the problem will begin to diminish. That'll create a more friendly environment, not just for families and folks to come and visit, but also for businesses to come into the downtown, and we can go from a heavy bar and tattoo scene to maybe something else. One of the most important things I think government can do to help businesses get out of the way. Let businesses do what they do best, provide a good infrastructure for them and allow them to flourish. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seaborn. Our next question is for Ms. Williams. Ms. Williams, what is your plan for the repair of the streets of Fullerton?
Well, as all of us know, that those of us that have been following our city council meetings in terms of our monies and what monies we have available to us, that has been low on in terms of priorities. But there are, again, those economic stimulus grants that are out there that are available to us that other states are using. For instance, the state of Illinois, they do offer rebates and they have access to those resources. It's just that for us as a city of Fullerton, we need to do those things to offset the costs that we don't have in order to fix our infrastructure.
Ms. Rance?
Yes, in the past, we did have some money available within our 5 redevelopment areas where we could have refurbished some of those streets. Unfortunately, that money was squandered on sort of some pet projects in certain areas that benefited the bars. So what we need to see now with the end of redevelopment and a small budget to work with, we need to prioritize funding of repaving of the roads. We need to prioritize resurfacing the roads over beautification, and we need to use our gas tax and Measure M turnback fees only for repairing the roads.
Thank you. Mr. Alvarez. Pardon me, Mr. Alvarez.
Taking care of our infrastructure and our streets, I'm an avid bicyclist, and I feel as though I'm going through obstacle courses when I ride my bike through town. Those bikes don't have shock absorbers like our cars do, but even like my work truck, I get quite a bounce out of that going through some of the roads that we have. To repair those, we really need a commitment to a person that almost I speak to in Fullerton as I go through this process. They're not concerned about so much about the 10% that we've been paying for 20, 30 years, or however long it's been on our water tax rates. What they're concerned about is the fact that that money that was supposed to go back into the infrastructure from the water fund has been used in the general fund. And I find people, including myself, I'm not concerned about the 10%. I will continue to pay the 10% as long as that money gets spent back into the infrastructure. We really do need to repair our streets. I think we all feel that way. And it's just a matter of commitment and prioritizing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Seaborn?
Thank you. Historically, the city council's prioritized streets as second to last on the list of fiscal priorities within the city. The head of it was public safety, redevelopment, parks, water, sewer, and storm drain lines, and then finally we hit streets. And on streets, it was arterial, and then your residential local streets. The only thing that was after that was the airport, so be careful. if you're flying. If it's anything like our streets, I'd be scared to fly. But seriously, you know, if you maintain the streets, businesses will want to come here. If you maintain that area from sidewalk to sidewalk, and you keep it clean, and you make it look respectable and safe to travel on, businesses and people will want to come here. I mean, you can't have curb appeal if you don't have a good-looking curb. And if you drive up and down our streets, you got standing water in some of these, you have sidewalks that look more like bridges, or maybe like an off-road course with blacktop. It really is hugely embarrassing, and it's embarrassing for businesses who have their customers coming. It's embarrassing for people who live here and have guests coming. We need to change our priorities. We need to focus on it. Historically, just finish this one up. Historically, the general fund has contributed very little or nothing to the infrastructure. Very little or nothing, yet it's taken away millions of dollars through the water tax and through other taxes. Thank you.
Mr. Bankhead.
When I was sworn in about a year and a half ago now, my opening comments was we have to do something about our streets. To do something about it costs a tremendous amount of money. If you tear up a short piece of street, completely tear it up and redo it, you're talking about $1.5 million or $2 million. So the best we can do until the economy improves is an asphalt overlay, which we just made contracts with some people to come in and start trying to do more of those through the city. I'm very much aware of the problem of our streets, and I thoroughly agree they need to be fixed. And we put all the money that we have, that we don't have to spend for emergency services and other types of services that have to be provided, we spend on our streets. And I hope we can start spending more, and we will if the economy improves. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question will be our last question of this segment. It is, if we follow the questioner's instructions, a short one for Ms. Rance. Yes or no answer, please. That's what it says on here. If elected, would you give vocal support to Lawrence Law?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Seaborn.
Yes.
Local support to who?
Laura's Law. Ms.
Since I don't
Williams.
really know what exactly that entails,
Yes.
probably not.
Thank you. We are now going to have our closing statements in reverse order from our opening statements. Our candidates each have 1 minute for their closing statements. And our first speaker will be Ms. Rance.
Thank you for being here this evening, and thank you to the League of Women Voters. The people of Fullerton deserve a council that is active, engaged, and understands the needs in the community. The city has been running a status quo too long. As a part of the new leadership being elected in this recall election, I can help to institute oversight and reforms within the police department, prioritize city money for infrastructure, keep libraries open, and preserve open space. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Williams.
I'd like to thank the League of Women's Voters and everyone that's here in attendance. In closing, I'd like to state that the journey of improving the lives of the community is a continuous cycle embraced by all persons living and doing business in the city of Fullerton. I'm new to Fullerton in terms of I've been here since 2006, but I do plan to continue to be a Fullerton resident, whether I win this seat or not. I do look for your support, and I thank you for this opportunity. Paula Williams for Fullerton Council, 2012. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bankhead.
If I survive this recall, I will continue doing what I'm doing now. I will continue to ensure that we have excellent police and fire services in our city. Our fire chief is trying to bring together the other cities so that we can have a joint fire department which will operate for each city in a cheaper than we have to pay for individual services. So with that, if if that happens, then we'll have more or less a fire department for North Orange County. I hope to see the same thing occur with our police department. I hope that cities up in North County can come together and put together one police department that will police the north cities, Placentia, La Habra, Brea, Buena Park, Anaheim, and Fullerton. With that, I think we'll be more efficient, more contracting out of public services such as what we've been doing for years, the trees. With that, I promise. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Seaver.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters for putting on this great forum. Thank you for the public for coming out and hearing us, giving us an opportunity to at least get our message out. I know that there are a lot of questions out there that didn't get answered, and hopefully you will take time to contact all of us and ask your question in the terms that you want, and hopefully you get an answer that is at least mindful and respectful of what you're asking. Whether elected or not, I'm not going anywhere. I've been here for 40 years. I plan on sticking around, retiring here, not moving out. Can't get rid of me that easily. As long as this city has something going on at City Hall, I'll be involved, whether it be on a commission or just an active participant of the public, and I hope you do too. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Alvarez.
Thank you once again, League of Women Voters. Thank you all for coming and sharing this evening with us. 28 years ago, a lady named Norma Bassencherry took my wife and I under her wings and said, "You kids are going to be moving to Fullerton." So I owe her a great deal of gratitude for that. And 20 years later, here I am running for City Council. So as a business owner in town, I owe her that to make her proud of bringing me and my family to Fullerton. I think that going forward, we need real leadership. We need a person that understands how to run the city, how to run a company, how to balance budgets, how to take care of priorities, and make painstakingly decisions that are going to be made in the next 2.5 years and going forward. The decisions we have to make are going to be very, very difficult, and it's going to take real leadership to get it done. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Before we take our 5-minute break, I'd like to just ask that priority be given in restrooms to the candidates. Running the candidates night because they have to be back here in 5 minutes. Now, if you would all please join me in thanking our candidates. In response to the question about Laura's Law, we had Mr. Seaborn say yes, Ms. Rand say yes, Mr. Alvarez say yes. I don't believe we had a response from Ms. Williams, and Mr. Bankhead said no. Actually, he said it was difficult. He said not necessarily.
He said he didn't know what it was. He didn't know what it was. And then he said, so he would say no. And then he voted no.
Okay, obviously you heard better than I did. Anyway, we are now in our second segment, and you've all come to attention. Thank you so much. We now have before us the candidates for Mr. McKinley's seat. Mr. McKinley is not here this evening. We have with us Mr. Sean Hayden, Mr. Matthew Rowe, Mr. Barry Evanson, and Mr. Doug Chafee. They are seated in the order of the lots that they drew, and they will begin with their 2-minute voting statements. And the first to speak this evening is Mr. Hayden.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. I had a little bit of jitters. Thank you for coming. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this event. My name is Sean Hayden. I was born in the city of Fullerton, graduated from Sun Hills High School, class of 1989, and lived here for the last 8 years. In the intervening years, I went to law school. I've been practicing for 15 years. I do know what kind of reputation lawyers generally have. When I first announced to my uncle that I was going to be practicing law, he told me I would make an excellent lawyer, and when I thanked him, he said that wasn't a compliment. Wow. Despite the negative impression about lawyers, some of which is earned, we are, as a profession, people who are absolutely dedicated to representing our clients. That becomes our first priority and only priority in the course of our handling of any case. We take a look at the evidence, the facts, the documents, the law. We look at the opposing witnesses, their credibility, what they know, what they don't know. And we look for every single way we can poke any possible holes in that argument to get our clients' exposure down as much as possible. And as a city councilman, that's exactly what I would do. I'd be representing the city of the people of Fullerton, the taxpayers of Fullerton, in our efforts to find savings in every single place possible in the budget. Not just in cutting a little bit here and there, a little bit of trimming on the budget and the perimeter, but in eliminating unnecessary departments if at all possible, getting us out of the redevelopment business completely, and getting us out of the pension business completely, so that we get our city on solid fiscal footing, so that we have the money that we need to repair our infrastructure and make this city the great place it was when I was born here, the great place it was when I moved here, and the great place that it will continue to be long after I'm gone and pass this city on to our children.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Rowe.
Hi, my name is Matt Rowe. I was born here in Fullerton, St. Jude Hospital, grew up on Southgate Avenue, attended St. Mary's School across the street, and played Fullerton Pop Warner, West Fullerton Little League. When I was 15 years old, attending Servite High School, I worked in the district office of Congressman Ed Royce for 3 years. In my second year working for Congressman Royce, he asked me where I wanted to go to college. I said probably Georgetown and study law, so I could have been like these two gentlemen here. But he said, what do you think about West Point? And I said, what is that? And he said, it's a military academy. I said, oh, well, I want to go to college. And he said, it is a college. You're an idiot. And so I said, okay, well, I'll look into it. So that summer, I was invited to go to the academy based off my test scores. I went there for a week, spent a month at Georgetown the following month, and I fell in love with West Point. I got a nomination to attend West Point in the Naval Academy from Congressman Royce. At the academy, I served on the honor committee. I was elected member. The honor committee upholds the cadet honor code. Cadet will not lie, cheat, steal, or tolerate those who do. In that role, I conducted investigations, sat on hearings, and I also was president of the Russian Language Club, the Model UN Club, team leader of the Ethics Bowl debate team, treasurer of the Investment Club, and graduated second lieutenant, served 5 years in the United States Army, got out as a captain, spent 3 years overseas in Germany, a year and a half leading a platoon in combat in Iraq during the surge, and then where I earned the Bronze Star Medal and the Combat Action Badge. I spent a year in South Korea, and I got out of the Army, spent a year here in Fullerton trying to start a business importing gears from Germany. And then I spent about 6 months working for a private jet charter company before now I started a career in aerospace as a project manager. So I've done a lot in my 30 years, and I became involved in city politics after the Kelly Thomas killing because I wanted to know what was wrong with the city that I love. And the more that I went to city council meetings, the more I found out that there's more wrong than I thought. I think Fullerton's a great city, but I think we can do a lot better. I think we can prioritize our budget and put public safety first, while at the same time making Fullerton an attractive place for business and families.
Thank you. Mr. Levinson.
Good evening. My name is Barry Levinson, and I'm in this race to replace current Councilman Pat McKinley, who is absent this evening. My MBA degree, not law degree as Matt just referred, with honors, and my 35 years of auditing and accounting experience, mainly in managerial positions, make me uniquely qualified to handle the financial crisis facing our city. I will also bring honesty, integrity, and a strong work ethic to the City Council. How many scandals and lawsuits do the fine citizens of Fullerton have to deal with before we make a real change and clean up City Hall? The main issues facing Fullerton, as I believe, are as follows. First, I will provide real pension reform. I provided a detailed 2-page list of the steps necessary to make significant progress toward real pension reform to Council way back on February 1st, 2011. Yet during that last round of employee contract negotiations, my sound advice was ignored by Council totally. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we're facing approximately a $500 million unfunded pension liability. Accountability. The days of rubber stamping the department head's recommendations will stop. the moment I am sworn in as one of your new council members. I will never relinquish the responsibility of vetting each and every item that comes before the council. Leadership. I have the courage to look directly at Pat McKinley and speak honestly about his lack of moral leadership, both as police chief and as councilman. We know the amount of damage he has done to this city. My solemn promises. I promise that when I am elected, I will conduct myself with the utmost integrity and honesty. I will be relentless in protecting your hard-earned tax money while making changes to the way this council and this city operates, always placing the interests of our citizens first. It is about time that the good people of Fullerton and representation that willingly makes those pledges to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chafee.
Yes, thank you. I'm Doug Chafee. I'd like to thank all of you for turning out this evening. That's one of the great things about Fullerton is the public participation. I've lived in Fullerton now for 61 years. I've had a law practice in the downtown for more than 40 years. What I'm trying to do is simply follow a family tradition of providing community service. My father served as Fullerton City Attorney, and he was one of the founders of the Boys Club. In fact, the computer room that was there before they tore it down was started as a memorial to his long service to that club. My mother was very active too. She was the founder of the Fullerton Interfaith Emergency Services, very active in other things, including her church, and at the time of her death last year, she was an 85-year member of the YWCA. So I have a lot to live up to. I've served as vice chair of the Fullerton Planning Commission, and I've been active in things like Fullerton Interfaith Emergency Services. FIES is a tremendous organization that serves homeless people, and also things like Friends of the Arboretum. You'll find a more complete bio at my website at chafeeforcouncil.com. I'm running to promote fiscal responsibility. Every city department, not just the water department, needs to scrutinize for cost effectiveness. Pensions must not bankrupt your city, but yet must be fair to city employees. I'm running to maintain quality of life. I was the only planning commissioner to vote to save Friday Hills from overdevelopment. I emphasize maintaining our infrastructure. I work diligently to maintain our reputation as the education community. I'm running to promote public safety by initiating a community-based policing system. I'm also running to streamline the process of bringing new businesses to Fullerton. And above all, I'm running to bring civility, respect, and openness to City Council. My campaign has not engaged in any mudslinging and will not engage in any mudslinging ever. Thank you.
Thank you. Our first question this evening will be for Mr. Payton. Mr. Payton, please state the position you would take as a city council person about Coyote Hills.
Thank you. First of all, Coyote Hills is currently subject to a referendum that will, in all likelihood, decide whether the city is going to proceed with the development or going to proceed with litigation. As the matter is currently in litigation and has been since 2010. I do favor the project. I think it's the best project for that area. It provides a 280-acre park that the city does not have to pay for. We do not have to pay to acquire the property. We do not have to pay to develop the property. We do not have to pay. Well, there's at least a set aside for this for the employee salaries. If we are to litigate to acquire the property, we could face hundreds of millions of dollars in liability. If we win, we'll have to purchase the property with funds we don't have. We still don't have the word nature center open because we don't have the funds to maintain it. This is a project that will actually give us open space that the people in the city of Fullerton can actually use and will provide revenue for the city as well.
Thank you. Mr. Rowe.
I am in favor of preserving Coyote Hills. I'm not in favor of developing it. The way I see it, the referendum is a good idea because people can disagree on how the property ought to be used. I think it's an issue for the community at large. I'd like to correct Mr. Chafee a little bit because he said he was the only one on the planning commission that voted to save Coyote Hills. What he said was this is a good plan, I could support it, but it doesn't have enough low-income housing, which was what Mr. Chafee specialized in with his development company that was registered with the state. I'm still talking. And so when I met with Chevron the other day and we had a meeting, that's what they told me Mr. Chafee had told them when he was on the planning commission. I'm in favor of preserving Coyote Hills, but I think the voters ought to have a say because it's a contentious issue. There are benefits for the city, but it is the last open space. There are protected species in that area, and I think that Fullerton's been developed enough. We don't need more traffic. We don't need more burden on our schools. We need some open space for our families to enjoy, and we can find a better use for that property somehow else.
I need to caution both the candidates that they may not speak to one another, and the audience, please refrain from comment.
Could I
Mr.
ask?
Levinson, no,
What?
you may not. I'm sorry. There is no interaction from the audience. Mr. Levinson.
Thank you so much.
She's right.
As all of you know, I'm the only one on this panel who has actively participated in trying to save Coyote Hills. One of the reasons you have this referendum coming before you this November on the development agreement is because I spent countless days and nights away from my family, my wife and son, collecting signatures for that petition to get enough signatures to be placed on the ballot this November. You have that choice. You have that choice this November. I hope that the vote is for a park, but the people ultimately will decide, and that is called democracy, ladies and gentlemen. And that is, excuse me? Okay. That is democracy, ladies and gentlemen, and the people of Fullerton will make a decision whether or not they like the development project or not this November. So I ask everybody to vote their conscience and to vote for a park. Thank you.
Mr. Chapin.
Yes, I also collected signatures for the referendum, not only Mr. Levinson. What I did say at the Planning Commission is that there were parts of the plan that I could support, but there are many flaws in it, such as not picking up a major earthquake when right under the property and was not picked up, the keeping of oil rights, and no plan as to how that might be extracted, such as using possibly fracking and hazardous chemicals. We need to put it on the table. Let's look at that to see if it affects our residents. As to housing, I did say it was not taking its fair share of housing for low-income persons, and if it didn't go in fair share, it would have to go other places of the city. I have no other interest in developing any part of it. That is an unfortunate impression that apparently some people want to convey, but that's absolutely false. I do support saving as much as we possibly can for a park. There could possibly be some development over on the western side. Thank you.
Thank you. The audience needs to remember that if you do have additional questions, you can still submit them. Go ahead and write them down and we'll pick them up. Our next question is for Mr. Rowe. Mr. Rowe, well, for all candidates, but it will go first to Mr. Rowe. Who is the major donor in your campaign?
The major donor so far has been myself. I think I've raised about $6,500 in this campaign, and probably $3,000 or $4,000 of that is mine. Another $2,000 came from my father, and the other $100 checks came from friends of mine from West Point and a couple of people around town that met me at restaurants and whatnot. And so far, I hope to raise some more.
Thank you. Mr. Levinson.
I have the same answer as Matt. I've been the major donor in my own campaign. Unfortunately, I don't have special interests like the police and fire union or developers in my back pocket, so I don't get those dollars. So unfortunately, when your positions are for the people and not for special interests, you have to dig deep into your own pocket, and you have to find a way. You have to find a way to finance your own campaign. It's difficult, but I do it willingly because I love the city and I want to see the proper changes implemented right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chafee.
My major donors have been from my own family, I think principally my wife. I do not have any money from any major organizations like unions, have none of that. And it has been mainly donations of modest sizes from many people in the community. And I think that's the way to keep it.
Thank you. Mr. Payton.
My major donor actually is my parents and myself. So this is the out-of-town influence that has been put in my campaign. But that's it. There's no special interest, no developers, no union money, nothing.
Thank you. Our next question is for Mr. Levinson. Which candidates would support a full 15-year refund to Fullerton's water customers who have been overcharged by 10% on each water bill since 1997?
Well, I certainly agree that the taxpayers or the ratepayers of Fullerton have been definitely overcharged. It's an unauthorized and it's been an illegal collection of that fee for the last 15 years since Prop 218 was passed way back in 1998. Unfortunately, my understanding is that there's a statute of limitation on refunds and it can only go back 3 years. And since each month we're being overcharged about $200,000 a month, it's about $2.4 million a year, so about $7.5 billion could and should go back to the taxpayers, and I'm certainly in favor of that. Thank you.
Mr. Chafee?
Yes. The actual overcharge is not 10. The accounting numbers seem to indicate it's more in the range of 6%, in other words, a 4% overcharge. I would like to see that money defraying the cost of future water bills. I don't think the city can cut a check to repay the overcharges. So let's carry it forward. Let's give everybody a chance to have a smaller water bill in the future. And if some of that money can somehow go into maintaining our 428 miles of water pipes, many of which are in bad need of repair, that would be okay with me too. Thank you.
Mr. Payton?
When you take something you don't have, you give it back. It's as simple as that. And this tax was not authorized under the law, and we should give it back. We go back to the extent the statute of limitations, a 3-year period, and we refund that money to the taxpayer. And that's going to put additional stress on the city as far as balancing its budget. And it's important, it gives you an idea of just how out of whack our budget priorities have been, that even with this tax, which we should not have been imposing on the citizens, we still have been running a deficit year to year. So we are going to have to make some very significant cuts in our budget to finance that, but we need to do that because, again, we did not have the right to take this money in the first place.
Thank you. Mr. Rowe?
When I attended the Water Commission survey or review presentation, I felt that the presentation showed some very flimsy assumptions and that citizens in Fullerton were indeed overcharged for our water bills. I would take an approach between what Mr. Levinson and what Mr. Chafee said. I trust Mr. Levinson's numbers better because he is an accountant. I didn't imply that he's a lawyer earlier. I was pointing to Mr. Chafee, who's the other attorney on this table. But I believe that you can't adequately recompense all the citizens in Fullerton because people move in and out of the city from month to month or from year to year. And I think that money should be carried forward toward future water bills for residents in Fullerton because we can't adequately determine, who's entitled to remunerations. 3 years ago I was living in South Korea, so I probably wouldn't be entitled to any of that money.
Thank you. Our next question is for Mr. Chafee. What leadership skills have you demonstrated to the people of Fullerton since the 2010 city elections that would make people want to support your candidacy?
Well, that's difficult because my mother passed away last year. I've been primarily engaged in taking care of family matters. I have not served on any city commissions in the meantime, but I have a long list of things I've done in the past, from serving as president of the Sunrise Rotary Club to serving as a president of the old Fullerton United Way, and later on as that merged into the County United Way. I served on that board as well. If you look at my bio, you'll see nearly 20 or so organizations of which I have served on. And I've also been attending to various business matters and trying to retire from my practice, and that has occupied most of my time. And so I can't claim to have been in some illustrious position since 2010. That would be a false claim. But I think if you look at my past, and going forward, I think you'll see that I have good qualifications. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Payton?
Yes, I think when you're looking at experience and what that says as far as your leadership, I think you look at more than just what boxes you check but what you do with that experience. Our city bureaucracy is an absolute maze. When you think about this from the perspective of a small businessman who wants to do business in the city, there's so many bureaucracies that we actually have an agency to help businesses navigate all these agencies. People who use that experience, the experience that they've gained working in city government, to figure out just precisely where we can cut and should cut, I think that's valuable experience. Simply working in one committee, putting in a little bit of time here, a little bit of time there to check the box does not help. Does not help the people of Fullerton. So that's what I want to provide. I not have experience in city government. I am an outsider in that respect, but I understand where we need to focus our budget priorities and how we need to cut spending as much as we possibly can, and everywhere that it's not necessary, so that we have a city that can afford to pay for the infrastructure that we desperately need repaired.
Thank you. Mr. Rowe.
I believe my appeal to voters is mostly to do the fact that I really care and I'm passionate about the issues. With the exception of Mr. Levinson on this table, I haven't seen too many hard stands taken on some important matters as of late, notably the Kelly Thomas murder. That's what got me involved in city politics. It got me into the city council room before that. I was just focused on my job and my extracurricular activities on the board for my West Point Society in Orange County. But I came to city council meetings, I learned that there was a problem here, and I just decided to get involved. Rather than stand on the sidelines and not take a position, I examined what happened, and when you look at it, it's related to my second issue, which is the city budget. Currently, our police department takes up half the city budget, $37 million a year out of a $74 million operating budget, and what are we getting for that? We're getting the killing of an unarmed homeless man, we're getting people's civil rights violated, sexual assault, theft, stealing from the property room from civilian employees, and I think that we need to overhaul it. And I haven't heard those statements from not many other candidates here.
Thank you. Mr. Levinson.
Thank you. I've been extremely active in the politics, or I should say the governing of this city. It started way back in the beginning of 2010. My wife and I, citizens, found out that a 4-time child sex offender was going to move next door, and that Jessica's law that was passed by the state had no teeth. So my wife and I got involved, and 7 months later, because of our efforts, we passed the first child sex ordinance in the city of Fullerton. I have been involved. I ran for city council, and I have not stopped going to council meetings, as opposed to my opponent here, who I haven't seen once speak out on any of the civil rights issues or budget issues relating to the city. I've spoken on all of them. I have never left the city after I ran, because what's most important to me is changing this city for the better, not getting elected. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question will probably be our last before our closing statements, and it is from Mr. Payton. What are the pros and cons of privatizing the Fullerton Water Department?
Well, the first question would be, who do we bid from? Who would be able to offer the services? And what kind of services they could provide? Would we be able to get our rates lower? I haven't even seen, all candor, I haven't even seen a proposal for that. I think in general terms, privatization often works and is an effective way to lower costs, but there are a myriad of contingencies and information that we need to know specifically about the proposal. So anything that's hypothetical is really difficult for me to answer, especially with less than 30 seconds remaining for the question. It is something that I think we can consider if it's possible, if it's feasible, if it saves us money. Absolutely, we do it.
Thank you. Mr. Rowe.
Privatizing some city services might make sense, privatizing others doesn't. Right now, according to the proposition that was passed in the late 90s, the city water district is only allowed to charge the city or bill it for the services it provides and not for profit. So I don't know why we would contract out to a private company that's going to only operate for profit. I don't know companies that operate not for profit. And when the law says the city should be charging direct costs and not a dime more. So I think we should go follow the law and charge citizens directly what it costs the city to maintain the water infrastructure and nothing more.
Thank you. Mr. Levinson.
I have a different approach. My approach has always been, you don't know the answer to that question until you get bids. You get private bids, and you find out how much it would cost, and you compare it to what it's currently costing the citizens of Fullerton. Again, way back when in February of 2011, I asked the city, please get private bids for every city department so that when you go to negotiations with the employees, you'll have a bargaining chip to know what the cost is to do it privately versus what it's costing the good citizens of Fullerton to do it publicly. They refuse. It's the same answer for water. We have to go out, be proactive, get bids, and then determine with information and knowledge what's the best route for Fullerton. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chafee.
Well, that is something I've discussed with the city manager as a possibility, and it does require a study. The issue here really is how do we take care of the infrastructure that is so badly in arrears. And the idea is if it goes private, a couple of things might happen. One, we might sell the assets, which include the reservoirs, and put some money into the general fund as a result, and possibly shift that burden to the private person taking over the water system. But I don't particularly want to do that until we study that. Fullerton has its own wells that does buy some water from the MWD. But I do think we need some numbers and some discussion, and any bidding process. There are many water districts in the county and other places that might be interested in taking it over, as well as some private enterprise people. That needs, as Mr. Levinson says, some bids, but that probably would take a good year to put a bid package together and actually get those bids.
Thank you. I need to ask our timers how we're doing on time. Do we have time for one more question, or should we go to closing statements?
We have 2 minutes.
Okay. We'll do one more question. And our question is to Mr. Rowe. Mr. Rowe, how would you solve the homeless problem?
Well, if that problem is easily solved, I think we probably wouldn't be here anymore. Unfortunately, there are many circumstances for why people find themselves out of work or on the streets, and sometimes it's not their fault, and sometimes it's their choice. We never know. It depends on the person. I think the formation of a homeless commission was a welcome step by the city. I think that we have to have a dialogue on how we treat our homeless people. Certainly, property owners and business owners have rights, and we'd like to keep the city as orderly as possible. But at the same time, I think we need to show compassion for the people in this town that either are less fortunate or have fallen on hard times. So what I would suggest is the city needs to get a good accounting of the homeless people that are here, the diseases or mental illness and diseases or handicaps that they might have, disabled veteran status, things like that. Find the public programs from the state that are already available and the private organizations that are already available, trained and resourced to help, and put our homeless personnel in touch with those organizations that are willing to assist while at the same time doing what we can for them.
Thank you. Mr. Levinson.
I agree with Matt that it's not just a city problem, it's a county, it's a state, and it's a federal problem. And it's a disgrace that we have so many people on the streets, probably most of them having mental illness, needing treatment, and not getting it. That really is a disgrace for our country that we don't do more to take care of those people. What I wouldn't do, I went to one of the meetings of the, actually it was enough meeting of the homeless update. And one of the people that was there was an Orange County official who was in charge of homeless people. And one person from the audience asked, how many people have you actually taken off the street for Fullerton? And the answer was, I don't know. And then they left. They didn't say they're going to find out what the answer was. That's the problem, ladies and gentlemen. We have bureaucrats who get millions of dollars in programs and then waste it by not following through and doing the job that they were paid to do. We need to do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chafee.
Would you repeat that question, please?
Certainly. How would you solve the homeless problem?
Well, that's a very difficult problem. We have homeless people that are just homeless, have homeless people that have mental illness, have homeless people that have mental illness and are also drug addicted. There's so many different combinations. It's very difficult to find one size fits all. But we can start by building a year-round shelter. The armor we have is only open during cold winter times. That's very important that we work to get that done. We should conduct a census of the homeless in the town and find out a needs assessment so we can treat them properly. I don't know how many there are either. I'm not sure anyone does. It's a very fluid population. And I would support Laura's law. That has a lot to do with treating mental illnesses, and some of those people are homeless. I like the idea. We've had an offer of a clinician, I believe, from the County of Orange to work with the police department. And that means that the clinician would provide an outreach to mentally ill homeless people and work in tandem with the local police department. That's an excellent recommendation.
Mr. King.
I don't know how popular this answer is going to be. The fact of the matter is, City Council, the homeless problem is frankly outside the City Council's jurisdiction, and I would treat it as outside the City Council's jurisdiction. It doesn't mean I don't have compassion for the homeless people. It does not mean that I don't understand how serious the problem is. It is a very serious problem. I work in court, and the last time I was in Santa Ana, saw about 150 homeless people packed in tents, 3 deep, all across one side of the courthouse. This is not just a problem unique to Fullerton. But I think one thing that people need to understand is our elected officials have a particular role to fill. And when our elected officials get on ideas, however noble those are, that have nothing to do with their job duties, that is an invitation to waste money. And as I said before, I want to be the advocate of the taxpayer. That's part of it. I have absolute compassion for homeless people. I do think one thing that we can do is the way that the police interacted with Kelly Thomas was very poor. And that can be changed. That's something that the city can do. Beyond that, I think it's outside of the
Thank you. That will have to be our last question before closing statements. And as before, our closing statements will be in reverse order from our opening statements. So our first person to give their closing statement this evening will be Mr. Chafee.
Well, thank you. I must first compliment my wife. When I married her, I found a very active person, and I felt very lucky to keep my maiden name. As I'm elected, they get 2 people. She counts for 1.5, and I count for 1/2. I did blow an answer to a question. I do currently serve as a member of the Friends of the Arboretum Board. I do serve as a member of the Board of Directors of the YMCA. I am a member of the FI's Advisory Committee. And during the last week, I've spent a day of my professional time for free writing documents for WISE. They're going to expand into Anaheim. That's taken a lot of time. There are other things. I'm sorry I drew a blank on that. What really makes Fullerton great is the participation of the people. And that is shown tonight with all of you turning out. I'm glad to see that. And that's what really the future depends on. If people don't turn out, if they aren't concerned, they don't show up at council meetings, even when they're somewhat a little unruly, which I don't like, we have to listen and get those ideas. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Levinson.
Tonight, it is my sincere hope that you have learned more about my positions on some of the most important issues facing the city. I am determined to make a real difference in how the city functions, how it deals with you, the public, and how it protects your tax money. I want you to know that I am supported by California Assemblyman Chris Norby, Orange County Supervisor Sean Nelson, and Fullerton Councilman Bruce Whitaker, and concerned, involved citizens throughout Fullerton. I also want you to know that those against me include Pat McKinley and the Good Old Boy Network, running Fullerton for the last 25 years. Lastly, I want you to know who is supporting my opponent, Doug Chafee, none other than Pat McKinley and the rest of the Good Old Boy Network. So, if you want honest, competent government that puts you, the people, first and foremost, you only have one choice, and that is to vote for me, Barry Levinson. My name appears first on your ballots, and I ask for your vote this June 5th. I want to thank the league, and I want to thank the public for attending this meeting. Thank you.
Mr. Rowe.
As I said, I was born and raised here in Fullerton, and I love Fullerton. It's a great town. It's a college town, an educated town. It's kind of got a big little city atmosphere to it, and I want to keep Fullerton a great place to live. I think we have some challenges in terms of public safety, the budget, and infrastructure, but I think those are all solvable, fortunately. And this is my first time running for politics. I will not get any endorsements from any from any political parties like the Republicans or the Democrats, because I'm an independent. I'm running for Fullerton City Council because I believe in fixing Fullerton problems, not in petty squabbles. That being said, my record is one of character, competence, and compassion. I'm not so sure that with Mr. Chafee running for the fourth time, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on city council elections, having been a developer in the city, developed projects in the city, that he can be trusted for zoning and planning issues as a city councilman. And I'd like to say my first loyalty is to the voters of Fullerton, the people of this town, and to our civil rights, and to our budget, and to our future. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Payton.
Again, thank you all for coming. Thank you all for your questions. You know, there's a question that, and actually Mr. Rowe touched on it, that I think is very important, and I'll just use my closing to talk about that. With the changes in state law that has shut down redevelopment agencies, the city is now on the hook for hundreds of millions of redevelopment debt. And we need a city councilman that is going to shut down redevelopment projects immediately. As this very day, we had a meeting with the Design Review Committee for the redevelopment agency. This is a year after they knew this redevelopment funds would be drying up. They're still hearing design issues in the Planning Commission. They are still going forward with projects that have not even broken ground yet, and they are obligating our tax money to do that. And I do agree with Mr. Rowe. I don't think there's anything unethical with what Mr. Chafee has done as far as the money that he has received and made in redevelopment. But we need somebody who has no connection with the redevelopment, that is not prejudiced in favor of redevelopment, to shut that down once and for all. Thank you.
Thank you. I need to, again, make a parenthetical statement to the audience. Realize that all the questions that have been asked to our first set of candidates and these candidates have been now set aside. If those touched issues that you want to hear asked at the last set of questions, you need to resubmit them. And you can do that during this last 5-minute recess. Once again, please join me in thanking these fine people. Five-minute recess. Last segment of our meeting, and I appreciate everyone's cooperation very much. Our last set of candidates are the candidates for the segment on your ballot that are Councilman Jones' seat. They again drew lots for their position, and our first person to give their opening statements is Ms. Reed.
Hi, my name is Roberta Reed, and I'm just really tickled to see so many people here. I've always said that, I'm sorry, I've always said that city politics is probably the most important of all. If you have children and they go to school, there's the PTA. There are political issues in just about everything you do. If you drive a car, it involves political issues. You name it, the issues go on and on. To be involved in city politics, whether you just come and listen to a city council meeting, or better yet, some of the commission meetings, that's where things start. And if you listen and you get involved, and you listen enough, you start understanding what they're saying, and that's scary. It takes a while just to understand it. They tend to use very big words, and I don't know, this is my opinion, especially the attorney. He can go on for, he's very gifted, he can go on for a half hour, 45 minutes, and I haven't understood a word he's saying. So it does take a while to get the lingo and to understand what's going on, but it's worth it. Because the more informed you are, the better you are at making your own decision, and voting is probably the most important thing we have left in this country as of right, being a citizen. I was involved a lot in Whittier. When my children were little, I got involved in PTA, found out I had to go to the county about issues. It wasn't just city, it was in the county part, so I had to go involved in the county and the city. At that time, I just wrote the local daily news and spoke at meetings.
Ms. Reed, your time is up.
Oh, gosh.
Thank you. Our second person to give their opening statement this evening is Mr. Kiger.
Hi, my name is Travis Kiger. I am the Fullerton Planning Commissioner appointed by Councilmember Whitaker. I'm also an IT director from an employee benefits firm where I lead a team of employees who develop healthcare websites. I'm running for city council because I believe I can fix a lot of the things that are kind of defined in as a Fullerton recall. First off, I'm appalled by the illegal water tax, the fact that we're still charging the residents of the city of Fullerton for water and in effect for the 10% legal fee. It's been illegal for 15 years, it's been around, and then the council knew it and they ignored it. And they got threatened by the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association about a year ago, and they did nothing. And they're still trying to sneak it through, and I think that's wrong, and I would vote to give that money back to the taxpayers that was taken illegally. And the other issue that's important to me is pension reform. We've got, depending on the numbers, we run probably about $500 million in pension debt, a large portion of that, which is completely unfunded, meaning we don't know how we're going to pay for it. We just keep kicking it down the road. It keeps getting bigger and bigger. We must take action to solve this problem, and the current council members who are being recalled have done nothing but take money from the public employee unions and boost those pensions, and almost got away with a retroactive pension spike a few years ago. So, there's a lot of fiscal issues, a lot of civil rights issues that I'm passionate about, and that's why I'm running.
Thank you. Ms. Bursick.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this event. It's always a pleasure to see so many people attend and have so much concern about the city that we all care so much about. My name is Dorothy Bursick, and I'm on the ballot for your consideration as an alternative should Dr. Jones be recalled. I've talked to several people about the recall, and the story, talking to people, the story that most comes to mind is the story of the blind men and the elephant. And that is, for those of you who are familiar with the story, the blind man, one man feels the tail and says, oh yes, the elephant's like a rope. Another man feels the leg and so yes, the elephant's like a tree. Another one feels the tusk and says, oh yes, the elephant's like a spear. It's been a little bit like that talking to some of the people here. Some people think, oh yes, it's about pensions. Oh no, it's about the franchise fee, which they call the illegal water tax. Another people say, no, it's about police. One person even said to me, oh, it can be about anything because it's a recall. Well, I would disagree with that. If you look from day one, I've had on my site the language that's posted in terms of what are the actual grounds for the recall. It appeared all the recall petitions, and somebody else must feel that it's important because it appears on page 33 of your sample ballots in the back where the candidate statements are. I think we've been through some very rough times in this city, but I think the people who have sponsored the recall have very clearly outlined what the positions are and what the grounds are that you should consider for the recall, and I hope you'll take the time to review that. I'm a 40-year resident. I was born here in Fullerton. I've lived here most of my life. I graduated from Fullerton High School. I was student body president at Fullerton High School. I have a bachelor's degree from USC, an MBA from the Harvard Business School, a Master of Arts in Law and Diplomacy, which is primarily international relations, from the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts. I have a background in public relations and management consulting, and I'm currently the creator, owner, and operator of a local website.
Thank you. Mr. Georgette.
Yes, good evening. My name is Glenn Georgette. I'm running for Dick Jones seat. I've been a long-time resident here. I've raised my family. I have 2 children that are presently in university at the moment. I participated as your former president of the Board of Trustees here at the Fullerton Public Library for 7.5 years. I'm also on the ad hoc committee for the general plan of the Hillcrest Park Master Plan. I participated in a number of other activities, primarily through my children's activities, as whether it's Boy Scouts, the local high schools. I've participated in the Fullerton Interfaith Emergency Services project with my sister's church over at First Lutheran. I was considered pretty much the chef. I was in the background cooking for most of that time. But one of the things that really has made me think very strongly about the reason why I'm running is that I feel very deeply that we're a resident community. And one of the things that I see even in this crowd today is the passion that the residents have, and they want to keep Fullerton the way they believe is what the reason why they were here and the reason why I want to raise my children. Now, after graduating from university, I had moved and lived in Paris, France for 6 years. Then when I married and had my children abroad, I decided I wanted to bring them back to Fullerton because this is the only place I can imagine that I would want to raise a family. It has perfect schools and weather, the park system, the public education, as well as the library is a shining moment in Orange County. And I feel that the troubles that are going on this time are brief and will transpire to a point where we'll be a better city. I think during tragedies, a lot of times it wakes up a community to try to find solutions to what's ailing them. And I think this is an opportunity to get new voices into the city council, and I believe that I'm one of those voices, and I do hope that you listen to me and elect me for your city council.
Thank you. Mr. Hakeem.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to come here and talk to you. Hopefully you're hearing what I'm saying. Now, basically, I've lived here since 1987. We all love Fullerton. I don't want to try to convince you that I love Fullerton more than these guys. So, we all can. Now, what I am a musician and an artist. Now, when crafting music, you need to have an open, intelligent mind that can consider many variables at once. And now, as far as art goes, the key with art is expression. Now, what is expression? It involves a great deal of heart, mind, and spirit. That's what I think the city council needs. We don't need politician types. We don't need money, big money. We don't need people putting up signs. Does that suggest that we are not intelligent enough to figure things out on our own or seek out candidates? Basically, that's it. That's why I'm running. I want to bring some heart, some compassion to the very center of everything that's going on. You might think that might not be good fiscally, right? But what about the budget? If we put compassion at the center of what we're doing, it'll be good. It'll make sense. Believe me when I say this. Okay? That you guys might not agree with that. You guys might come up with a million arguments against you need compassion first. Also dignity. That's why I'm running. And I would like to forfeit the rest of my time so we can get to the question and answer part sooner. Because I'd love to answer some questions so you guys can hear more about me and what I represent. Thank you.
I would like to make a small statement to our candidates. We did, at the break, have several questions, actual complaints from the audience. We have cautioned the audience that we would throw away any questions that were personal attacks. And we had several audience members who said if we can't give personal attacks, we appreciate it very much if the candidates would bring them as well. So I will simply leave that there for you to contemplate. Our first question is for Mr. Reed, and it is, what is your position on the West Coyote Hills development? Should we let Chevron build, keep it open land, or some other? I'm sorry, Ms.
Thank you. Thank you, Jen.
I'm looking at a piece of paper, I apologize.
Okay, Coyote Hills should stay the way it is. Maybe some trails and stuff like that. And it should all be done on a volunteer basis by those that like and love to use it. It's amazing to have as much open space as we have. Getting more developers into this city that we are already overdeveloped, over-trafficked, not enough parking. The parking's obsolete before it's built. This will cause more problems with parking, with traffic, and we lose something that was promised to us. This was promised by our city council to keep the Coyote Hills. The people want it. And it's time government listened to the people, not the other way around. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Kiger.
First off, the project is going to go to the voters, so I'm not sure how relevant it is right now, but to answer the question, I am a strong advocate of property rights. I would support the project. You know, it's been around for a really long time, and no one has come up with any money to buy the property. You know, it would take hundreds of millions of dollars, and personally, I don't want to pay for that out of my taxes. And, you know, the project gives some great gifts to the community, including lots of land for parks and open space, and I would support it.
Thank you. Ms. Percy?
I would just caution all of you in terms of listening to questions, first of all, that this seat is only a 6-month seat, if Councilman Jones has recalled. So we really wouldn't have any opportunity to deal with that prior to the November referendum. But let me just read you 2 statements. This first statement was from Dr. Jones' 2008 re-election website on smartvoter.org. And he says, I believe promoting first-time homebuyer programs and providing rehabilitation loans makes more sense than building high-density subsidized rentals. Now let me read you one statement from the Coyote Hills website. So we are not against development, as coyotehills.org. We are not against development, but rather where and how it is being done. Building homes with smaller footprints and near transportation centers is a smart and sustainable approach to meet our housing demands. The concept of urban infill and compact growth geared toward public transit is not new. Fullerton has an award-winning transportation center downtown. We need to grow this winning concept by exploring that, et cetera, et cetera. There are several policy issues and policy debates that revolve around development in town, and this is just one segment of that debate. But I think some aspect of development should go forward in Coyote Hills.
Mr. Georgia?
I believe in saving Coyote Hills. You know, growing up in this area, I remember, you know, running around that area a bit. You know, I remember Motorcycle Hill. I remember driving up and down the streets of the area, which Chevron actually owned. They've developed pretty much 95%, 98% of the area. Now, when they say that they're going to give us a park, they're speaking of the Fullerton Park only. They've developed, you know, when I was young, Chevron ran from Imperial all the way past the drive-in off of Idaho, all the way down Beach Boulevard through Boynton Park, La Mirada, on the other side of Rosecrans, and it'll be a great loss to this community and to the region in general if all of that is developed. I think we have to think about the future. We have to think about our children and grandchildren. I don't want to sit there and say, when I was growing up, remember this brush up here, all those homes over there? I used to run through there when I was young. Now, I know you can't do it now, but I used to have great memories of that. I don't want to talk about memories. I want to keep them for the future. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hakeem?
I am against the development of West Coyote Hills. I guess they've been trying to develop it for like almost 40 years, probably telling people the same thing back then they are now, that there's going to be a population explosion. We need to build this now, right? Okay, so I talked with the gentleman, Jim Puglisi from West Coyote Hills Development, and basically he just walked away from me. You know, and we were talking, and first it was the idealistic side where I said, yeah, what about the spirit of the earth? You know, we can't just pour concrete all over it, blah, blah, everything. He was starting to walk away. And then from the numbers side, he said, there's going to be 30,000 more people. What are you going to do about that? You want zero population growth? And I said, tell me, how can 760 homes house 30,000 people, right? And then he started to walk away. Then when I said, so basically, to take care of the number of people you're talking about, we're going to need to build more than 30 times what they're already suggesting. I am against the development of Coyote Hills now. I'm going to live here. Always no.
Our next question is for Mr. Kiger. Mr. Kiger, what additional reductions in city services do you propose in order to achieve a balanced budget?
A balanced budget will not be achieved through wellness right here. The vast majority of the budget is devoted to salaries, benefits, and pensions. any reductions in that budget are going to have to come through negotiations with the employee unions. Our current council members who are about to be recalled have been taking heavy donations from a wide variety of public employee unions, and as a result, they have given them very large pensions, and they've diverted money. That's what the illegal water tax is all about, diverting money from our budget into pension funds, and it's just, we're going to have to renegotiate those benefits with public employee unions. There's no other way around it, and it takes people with strong backbone to do that. So that's what I'll do.
Thank you. Ms. Bursick.
Thank you. Again, I'd remind you this will be a 6-month term for anybody to be elected. For those of you who aren't aware, the budget was just revised, and there were several implemented measures that were implemented to reduce costs. Those were employee compensation reduction for current staff and new hires, elimination of 59 full-time employee positions, employee contracts or pro salaries for a 3-year period. There were cuts to services and programs of up to 20% in some department. And there were implementation of contractual changes like the Fullerton and Bray Fire Department merger. There are several issues that might come up in the next 6 months that could change what happens within our budget. But what they have proposed for the budget is that there could be further potential layoffs, program and service reductions, and also bond issuance for a judgment that may come down in a legal matter regarding the Roma slopes, which are on Euclid. So there are too many changes possibly pending to say exactly what needs to be done.
Mr. Georgia.
Yes, the staff that brought the budget to City Council just recently got very close to actually balancing the budget. We weren't quite there. I know there was some consternation with some people that are running and some people that spoke at the dais about what we have to balance the budget. It is sort of a moving target considering the circumstances that we're in. If the franchise fees disappears, that the money is going into general fund will be short an additional $2.5 million a year, and so that has to be taken into consideration. So I'm not going to come up here and make a lot of promises about what I will and will not do when it comes to the budget, because as a city council member, you have to look at the facts and figures that staff brings to you and have to make the best determining facts at that present time. And from July to November coming up, as I mentioned about the franchise fee and other things that are changing, especially for on the slopes, we're going to be having to take a look at our budget completely differently as we are presently. I know that might sound like I'm evading it, but I'm just trying to be as honest as possible. I'm not going to sit here and make a lot of big promises that I can't keep.
Mr. Hopkins.
Thank you. Well, as far as the budget goes, we would need to look at every specific thing that we're dealing with and prioritize it. Like I said, using first compassion. Now, for the budget, it's simple. We need to, if we can somehow get more businesses to Fullerton, I know you guys might doubt that, but I think it is possible if we can do something whereby changing our image, perhaps. Not changing our image, but something like that. But I think milking the citizens for money is a horrible idea, and we should stop that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Reed.
Yes, I have trouble balancing my campaign fund budget. I'm trying to keep it as low as possible to prove it can be done and still get exposure. The budget's a big thing. There are a lot of departments in this city, and it's very complicated. The book that tells you about the budget is about this big, it's this high, and it's a lot of details. But I'd like to see it even more detailed. There's a whole big mass of general funds that we don't know where the money goes. And we need to know it's our money, it's our tax money. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is for Ms. Bursick. Ms. Bursick, to keep the dollars of Fullerton shoppers in Fullerton, do you have any ideas about improving shopping opportunities in our town?
That's an interesting question. Over the years, we've seen a lot of dollars leave, whether it's going to the malls in Bray or some of the surrounding communities. I think we have remarkable resources here in Fullerton. We have a series of special events like the Farmers Market, in which we bring not only Fullerton residents, but other people from town, and the opportunity to help keep their dollars in town would work if we were to possibly implement some special programs or recommend special programs in addition to what we already have to bring people in town. We have the Muckenthaler Center, we have, hopefully in the future, the Fox Fullerton, and we have many, many, many facilities which we could use to market to outside the city. One specific example that I'll give you is one that was given to me by Zoe Velasco, who is head over at the Muckenthaler, in regards to bringing filming crews here, which brings substantial amounts of money into the community.
Thank you. Mr. Georgia?
Actually, this is a question I sort of like. I think we have to come to certain terms that the demographics of Fullerton have been changing. And one of the things that I see being a dramatic positive for Fullerton is the conversion of Cal State Fullerton from a commuter college to a resident campus. As you probably have been noticing all the apartments and the dormitory style housing that's going on over there. That's going to create a dynamic that more and more young people are going to be shopping here in Fullerton. They're going to be participating downtown. They're going to be enjoying, and they're a much more celebratory a group of people. And so we have to start thinking positively about bringing more businesses that are going to cater to the young. And going back to Coyote Hills, if we keep that space open, as you know, recreational riders, people that are hiking, walking their dogs, riding their bikes through our old bridle paths, and things like that, if we can extend that, hundreds of people will do that each week, if not just on the weekends alone. And if we can cater to this new demographic, I think that we'll start seeing more sales tax money coming into Fullerton, and we can turn around some of our sort of slower business problems downtown. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hopkins?
Well, in order to keep people, their dollars in Fullerton, we should just do the human thing and ask them to. Right? It's community. We can just say, please consider the city of Fullerton. Right? I mean, it's kind of a good idea to reach out and just to business people, even people outside of Fullerton, invite them. I had an idea, I don't know how politically correct it is, but an idea to offer incentives for example, like green technology businesses or future-thinking businesses to come here. That could also help our image. That will help the budget. And to keep dollars in Fullerton, just a greater sense of community in everything we're doing. One idea I had was to utilize the horse riding trails. It's a big idea. I need a lot of input on it, but we can utilize horses, something run by the city. People, they could not just one day a year, but they could have this thing set up, maybe Coyote Hills, or part of it, some part of it. But basically, ideas.
Thank you. Ms. Reed?
Okay, I've been thinking that we could use a big hotel near the train station because we're going to be having this train that's going to go straight to Vegas, and it would be nice if we had a big, large, quality hotel. I think it would be very good. Our families can come and all kinds of things can be done in a really nice hotel. Serapenis can meet, the Rotary can meet. There's all kinds of possibilities. I have some other...
being able to actually take taxpayers' money and give them as subsidies to big box stores like Walmart's and Costco's. And as a result, all businesses are going to be able to compete on an even playing field. And so I think what we're going to see in Fullerton is kind of a revival of the small retailer as, they're no longer having to compete unfairly against businesses that are getting government handouts. And their customers will choose the best products and best services, and the free market will come into play, and small businesses are going to thrive in Fullerton. I think that we're set up here for a big revival with the way that our cities is laid out, and I think that small businesses are just going to accelerate. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is for Mr. Georgia.
We need to protect and make sure that we continue to beautify and make it open for everybody in the area. I also believe that the mission of the public library is one that is an extremely noble enterprise. Benjamin Franklin would be terribly proud of what we're doing here, as well as I believe that the university system gives us a certain identity. You know, we are a college town. We're only going to become more of a college town. And that dynamic, I think, is very evident in the residents of Fullerton, and we have to continue that. Now, I have 30 seconds to say the 3 things that I would like to change. I would like to change the culture of the police department so that they understand and that they are part of the process of the city of Fullerton. I would like to encourage that our public employees be residents of Fullerton.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have you stop with that.
You know, that just wasn't giving
Mr. Hopkins.
All right, it's hard to think of the top 3 things that I like the most. Right when you asked that question, the only thing that could come to mind was that I like that Fullerton has a small town feel. It's not big and dirty, maybe like Los Angeles. I like that Fullerton is a small town feel. Other than that, I don't want to pick and choose what I like, because I really do like the whole city. What I do not like that I would want to change is the leadership. Fill in the blanks. Corruption has been exposed. The whole city is very upset with all of them. And, yeah.
Thank you. Ms. Reed?
Okay, the parks. We've got gobs of beautiful parks in the city. Great place to take the grandkids. It's a wonderful place to go to in Fullerton. I like the trains. That last train thing that came through was fantastic. It was just wonderful. They brought in some neat old trains. I don't know if you saw it, but the display, this little small town and a big old water engine, and it was just, I mean, I was impressed. I was very impressed. We're a transportation city, so let's go with it. Also enjoy the colleges. I think the colleges are great.
Thank you. Mr. Cutter?
I like to focus on what I would change. Last year when a homeless man was murdered by some officers of the Fullerton Police Department, and there had been some other incidents leading up to that showed a real lack of leadership, at the upper levels of our city hall. At the time, nothing was done to remove these guys from the streets. They were still out on patrol for almost a month. After that, they eventually ended up, now they're on trial for murder. And to me, it's really despicable that nobody took action to get those guys off the streets. True leadership is stepping up and doing what's right when it's needed. And at a time when people were scared, Fullerton was being embarrassed and shamed all over the world, and no leader stepped up to do anything. And that's what the recall's about, and that's why I'm here, because I can do a better job.
Thank you. Ms. Bursick?
I guess I would say, in terms of the favorite 3 things would be, I think our #1, our education system here that gives so many people such a good start in life. #2, our libraries, not only the Fullerton Public Library, but the libraries at Fullerton College and Cal State Fullerton, which are superb. And I'd like to congratulate Mr. Giorgio for being part of the renovation here in this library. And then 3rd, I would say not just our parks, but the entire system of trails and all the recreational facilities that really add so much to so many people's lives. What I think could be changed, I would agree with Travis. I think the city might be able to work better with some of the support organizations in town to deal with the homeless problem. I would like to see our city be able to implement better infrastructure improvements to make sure that everybody here maintains a high standard of quality of life. And I think I drew a blank on the 3rd one.
Thank you very much. We're now at our last question for closing statements, and it is back to, I'm sorry, it is Mr. Hakeem's. Mr. Hakeem, how can you improve the parking downtown for businesses?
Well, I have a great idea about that. I was actually going to answer the question earlier, parking and the downtown, the nightlife, and the problems including drunkenness and so forth. See, I know the OCTA, they're kind of cold-hearted. They stop their buses at like 8 o'clock, they're always overpacked. What I'm suggesting is maybe the city of Fullerton can reach out to the OCTA about maybe lengthening the times that the buses run, maybe 24 hours, or at least the ones near the downtown, so the people can, they go in, they go out, they won't need to park.
I will repeat the question. How can you improve the parking downtown for businesses?
I don't know. I was taking classes at Fullerton College and I couldn't find a parking space with a sticker. I was always getting late to class and it was really hard to find a parking space. If you want to go somewhere uptown, you best get there before 3 o'clock or else park 10 blocks away. You know, it is difficult to get parking and I don't know what they can do about it. They've already built parking structures that are already obsolete. So I don't know, they could build some more, stack them higher. I don't know.
Thank you. Mr. Kiter.
This question really goes back to the issue of our streets and roads, our infrastructure funds that have been robbed. Basically, the money's been put back in the general fund to pay for salaries, pensions, and benefits. You know, the city city leadership has failed to account for our future, and really they've taken that money to pay for the people who work there now and their retirements. And you know, we need to change that. We need to reorganize our funds and put money and make investments in infrastructure and clean up our roads and fix our water pipes. And the only way to do that without raising taxes is to renegotiate with the employee unions and you know, make them pay their fair share of their generous pensions.
Thank you. Ms. Bursick.
I think probably most of you have noticed that there's a new parking structure being built in the SoCo area, south of Commonwealth. I think I'm hopeful that that will do quite a bit to alleviate the parking situation in downtown. Of people that I've talked to about downtown, probably the most common complaint that I've got is the fact that it's difficult to find a place to park down there. And I would just say one thing, some of the people that have complained to me the most are some of our elder citizens in the community who would like to go downtown and have a nice meal, but can't find a place to park and don't want to walk. So I would suggest perhaps that maybe some of the downtown businesses and the Downtown Business Association could work on maybe making a special valet parking area that would be accessible just for seniors, so that they could come and park their cars without having to walk a great distance and perhaps spend some more of their dollars and some more time downtown.
Thank you. Mr. Georgia.
I actually like that I think it's a stretch, Travis, though, to be playing pensions for parking. But anyway, I won't get into that. What I will say, though, is like any downtown that has a number of restaurants and shops, you're going to have this type of congestion anywhere you go. My wife always tells me, because I'm always trying to gun for the best parking spot with parking, why don't we just park way out there and walk a block or two and enjoy the day? That's why I like your idea, because that doesn't take into account the people that actually do need to park closer because of frailty. But anyway, I think a number of the things that the city has been trying to do is the correct thing. Getting bikes, getting people to try to be a little more active. I don't want any more parking structures in the city of Fullerton. I don't think they're aesthetically very pleasing and they're very cost prohibitive at this time. So, you know what? I think we just basically have to live with what we have right now and try to get the businesses to try to find creative ways in which they can bring people in and closer to their shops. And like you were saying, assist the people that need to be parked closer to the shops. Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to our closing statements, and since those will be in reverse order, our first speaker will be Mr. Joaquin.
Thank you. Well, please vote for me. I am one of the people that we want on the city council. I'm in no one's pocket. I have accepted no campaign contributions, and I will continue not accepting any. And basically that, yeah, please vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Georgia.
Well, during this short period of running, I have to say it's been an extremely exhausting experience. But at the same time, it's been extremely exciting because I've been getting to meet a lot of people I normally would not have met. And I think that one of the things about running, for an elected situation is the growth one receives. One of my close friends said, Glenn, this will be an experience, good or for bad, that you'll remember for the rest of your life. And one of the things that I have to say is that I'll forever remember all the people that I've met during this period running for city council. And I promise that if you elect me, I will constantly keep you in my heart and mind when I make my decisions, as well as for our children and grandchildren. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bursick.
I was on the campus at Cal State Fullerton today. They had a voter registration event, and I took out a table there and spent some time talking to the students on campus. And one of the students came up to me and said, well, what does this mean Fullerton's not for sale? And I tried to explain to him how the petition process came about and how this whole recall came about. And one thing I would say is I hope that in the future that, on one hand you say Fullerton's not for sale, but on how many times is it automatically the best funded candidate that you gravitate to, regardless of what race or what office. So I hope that we can all use this experience to maybe consider that the fact that not everybody's going to run a well-funded race, and that there are many people in here with many different voices. And I hope that you will give them more of your time and attention and do exactly what you're doing now. You're probably not the people I need to speak to because you're all here. But I think being tolerant of people who might not toe the party line or be traditional in their approach. And I hope you'll vote for me on June 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kiger.
All right, I want to make a really important observation here. I noticed that council members Dick Jones and Pat McKinley are not here tonight to defend themselves against the recall. And I think that says a lot about how they feel about us, all the voters in the room. It just shows their attitude that they've had the whole time, and that they just don't care about us. But moving forward, I have a long-term financial view for the city. It's all about our city's viability, our budget, and fiscal responsibility, civil rights, and that's what I stand for, and that's how I'll vote when I'm on city council. And I appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Reed.
Yes. Again, I want to thank the Women's League of Voters for putting this on. It's a great showing, and I too have found this campaigning exciting. It is fun at times, but it is tiring. It is very tiring. You do so much talking that when you get around your friends, you go, I don't want to talk. I just want to be quiet for a little while. Yes, you do a lot of talking and a lot of listening, but I'm hoping you'll pick up our flyers and give us a call and ask us about the things that you are concerned in for you and your family. Anyway, thanks again. And a special thanks to some of my senior buddies that helped me through this campaign. And the computer, there's Jack in the back from the Senior Center, who's been helping me daily get through these last couple of weeks. Thanks, Jack.
Thank you. I'd like to, before I thank our participants this evening, I'd like to remind you all that there is campaign literature and biographies on all of our candidates that are back on the tables behind you, and I urge you to pick those up. I'd also like to remind you that there is a wonderful website called smartvoter.org where candidates can post information for no charge. And I would urge you to go to that site. Again, it is smartvoter.org. You can pick up a little bookmark that will help you remember that. It will help you find information on not only your city council candidates, but on all of the candidates that are running for office in this coming election and in future elections as well. I'd also like to send a special thanks to this lady who's walking along in the white dress. Her name is Patty Chitty. the city of